Welcome to the Bay Area People's hearing to protect our coast from offshore drilling. Now, normally the federal government would be holding an informational hearing so that you could come and share your opinion about the plan to open up California's coast to new offshore oil drilling, but they're not doing that. So we are. Who's here to make their voice heard tonight? Fantastic. Well, we have you. And so before I do anything else, if there's nothing else that you do tonight, nothing else that you remember from this event, please fill out a postcard. All right? There's an opportunity to sign up to speak later on when we get to public comment, so you can do that. Those comments will feel great, and they are important, but they will not be part of the official transcript. So if you want to have your unique thoughts on what is happening, documented for the federal government with some hope of influencing them, you have to fill out a postcard. If you took one to your seat, make sure you give it back. So that's my spiel. So what are we going to do before we leave? Thank you. All right, now we can officially start. I'm Jennifer Savage. I'm the California Policy Associate Director for the Surfrider Foundation. I want to give a huge shout out to the Bay Model for hosting us. Thank you to all of our Surfrider chapters who are part of the event tonight and who put this together. We have Sonoma Coast, we have Marin County, we have San Francisco, and we have San Mateo County chapters, and members, volunteers, all here in the room. Thank you so much. We also have a lot of partner organizations. You'll be hearing from some of them later. We have a fantastic list of speakers who are going to be sharing and representing the views of a lot of different people and interest in California. And on that note, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the past, present, and future homelands of the Miwok Nation and honor the connection and stewardship of these lands and the waters. Thank you. I would also will note that we have several elected officials in the room with us here. You'll be hearing from them, and really looking forward to hearing what they have to say about this plan. And the plan itself, we will start off with Pete Stauffer to tell you all about it. Pete is with Surfrider Foundation. He's our Ocean Protection Senior Manager. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to all of you for being here today. Like Jennifer said, my name's Pete Stauffer. I'm the National Ocean Protection Manager for Surfrider. I live in San Clemente, California, which is the lands and waters of the Ahashiman Nation, and I am going to give a very quick background on offshore drilling. We're going to keep this to 10 minutes because we've got some very esteemed speakers lined up behind me, far more important than I am. But we do want to make sure that everyone here has a basic understanding of what is offshore drilling. Second, what exactly is the Trump administration proposing in terms of new oil and gas development off of our coast? And finally, how can you get involved? How can you engage in this critical public comment period? So what is a people's hearing? So as Jennifer said, we are having this meeting because the federal government is not holding any official public meetings. We are not the government, but we are creating public space. We're bringing together elected officials, business leaders, tribal representatives, surfers, fishermen, environmental justice leaders, members of the public to convene here to express our concerns and feedback. And we're going to figure out how to make our voice heard in Washington, D.C. And a final note that we are a nonpartisan organization, and this is a nonpartisan event. So some basic meeting ground rules. We want this to be a welcome event for everyone who is here. Please be respectful of everyone's viewpoints. Please allow everyone to express their opinions. Make sure it's a comfortable environment. And last but not least, please turn off your phones. So what is offshore drilling? In simplest terms, it is the extraction of oil or gas from beneath the seafloor. And offshore drilling is an expansive process. It's not just about the drilling. It begins with ocean exploration and seismic blasting. Then, of course, you have the drilling of the seabed. You have the production, the transportation, the refinement, and ultimately the burning of fossil fuels. And as we'll talk about in a minute, there are major risks and impacts through every phase of the drilling process. Most offshore drilling in the United States occurs in the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, about 99%. So for decades, the Gulf has been a sacrifice zone. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And roughly, the Gulf produces about 15% of total U.S. crude oil. We have a lot of unused permits. So there's a lot of questions about why do we need to give the industry even more leases. They are sitting on millions of acres of ocean that have already been leased and not brought to production yet. Nearly 2,000 unused oil and gas permits. And finally, challenges with decommissioning. Decommissioning is what's supposed to happen when an oil and gas rig reaches the end of its lifespan. The oil company is supposed to cap the well, remove the infrastructure in accordance with law, and restore the environment. Sounds very simple. It's not. We're having all kinds of problems here in California. Off the California coast, most rigs have either reached or are nearing the end of their lifespan, but we have a lot of issues with non-compliance, unmet deadlines, logistical challenges. There's major questions about is the public going to have to foot part of the bill? So trust me, we don't want to give more leases to the oil and gas industry. So let's talk about those environmental impacts. So the impacts begin before the actual drilling process starts. It's called oil exploration or seismic blasting. Loud sounds or explosions underwater, very harmful to marine life and the marine ecosystem. We have drilling and processing. You can think of this as the routine operations of offshore drilling. Pollutes the ocean, pollutes the air, harmful not just to the environment and communities. Oil spills. Oil spills happen all the time. Small ones tend not to be covered by the media. The large ones can be catastrophic to the environment and to communities. Talk about that more in a second. And then we have the onshore impacts. Refineries, petrochemical facilities, problems with air pollution, environmental justice, and then of course climate change. We are at a time in history where we desperately need to shift away from fossil fuels. We need to invest in conservation, renewable energy. So this proposal that we're going to talk about, this would lock us in to decades more of oil and gas development and would represent billions of metric tons of additional greenhouse gas emissions into our atmosphere. And a plug for some of the resources we have at the Surfrider tables, including a Surfrider drilling fact sheet. So I mentioned seismic airgun blasting. So this is how the industry will identify potential oil and gas deposits. They will use these seismic air guns for days, for weeks, for months on end. These loud sounds or explosions underwater, these are louder than a jet engine. They travel hundreds or thousands of miles underwater, very, very harmful to marine life. At close range, they can cause injury or death, but even from very long distances, very disruptive. If you look at this image here, this is a humpback whale and her calf. Humpback whales depend on sound and hearing. It's one of their most important senses for their social behavior, their communication, their migration, and they can't turn these sounds off, right? These are some of the largest and most intelligent animals ever to inhabit the planet. These animals cannot submit comments to the Trump administration. So we need to be the voice for these magnificent animals. So it's not just about us, it's about them as well. We mentioned oil spills. Oil spills happen all the time. Here in California, we've had 2 major oil spills in the past 10 years. Of course, 2015 had the Santa Barbara oil spill. That was a real mess. A lot of you were on the front lines for that. Really devastating impacts to wildlife, beach closures, impacts to businesses. And then 4 years ago, Orange County, where I live, we had the Amplify Energy oil spill. That was a mess as well. Heartbreaking impacts to see that in person. Closed our beaches for 10 days. We had fisheries closed for several months, huge disruption to hotels, businesses, our way of life, and that was a quote-unquote smaller spill. So yet another reason to oppose offshore drilling. And environmental justice. So this is what offshore drilling looks like on land. Petrochemical facilities, refineries, terrible air pollution, health impacts, issues with asthma, elevated cancer rates. These facilities tend to be sited in lower income and/or communities of color. Just because these facilities may not end up in this community, they end up in someone's community, and that's still not okay. So this process is an opportunity to say, no more of this. So no more of this for decades into the future. We need to transition to renewable energy. There's also a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of this originates from the industry itself. We have some great resources at Surfrider, a link to our toolkit, which we will email you tomorrow if you registered for this event. So I do want to just briefly go through a few of these because I think they're important. The first is that new offshore drilling would not reduce gas prices. Those are set by global markets. Second is that more drilling is not needed. The U.S. is already energy independent. We have been a net oil exporter for the last 5 years. The oil industry is not limited, right? We already talked about those unused permits, millions of acres of ocean, already leased, not brought to production. Offshore drilling is still causing oil spills. We know that well here in California. And we have alternatives. We have wind, we have solar. These technologies are scaling. They're cost competitive. And that's the future that we need to invest in California and beyond. So let's talk about this terrible proposal that came out in November. All these colored areas that you can see off the United States, they are proposed for new oil and gas development. And yes, that's right, that is the entire California coast. This overlaps with a number of national marine sanctuaries. You'll hear about more of this later, but national marine sanctuaries do prohibit new offshore drilling. So yet another problem with this proposal. Drilling could be as close as 3 miles to shore and could extend out to 200 miles. And kind of hard to see in this slide, but these lease sales would begin as soon as 2027. That is next year. And keep in mind that a lifespan for an oil and gas lease, 30, 40, 50 years. So this is a generational impact. This is not just what's going to happen in the next few years. This is what the coast is going to look like for your kids or your grandkids. And this decision is going to get made potentially by the end of this year. And it does not require the approval from Congress. So you can see the urgency here and why we are working so hard to stop this. I do want to note other areas. You can see the central and western Gulf of Mexico, also a portion of the eastern Gulf, which has previously been protected. And Surfrider and the other partners who are here, our goal is to protect all U.S. waters. So we do encourage you when you submit your comment, don't just speak in support of protecting California. We want to protect the Gulf. We also want to protect Alaska and the Arctic. We've got literally hundreds of millions of acres being proposed for offshore drilling off Alaska, from southeast Alaska around to the Aleutian Islands, all the way up to the Arctic. The Arctic is one of the most pristine and sensitive marine ecosystems on the globe. Can you imagine trying to respond to an oil spill in the high Arctic? So again, our goal is to protect all U.S. waters, and in total, this proposal targets over 1.2 billion acres of U.S. ocean for new drilling. So let's talk about the process. We keep talking about this public comment period. This public comment period ends on January 23rd. So this is the home stretch. You can see that red arrow there. We're trying to get as many comments submitted on the official public record. So what happens after that public comment ends? The agency will take that information, they will review it, they will consider it, we hope. They will do some environmental analysis, we hope. And then sometime later this year, they will come out with the proposed program and launch the final comment period before they make a final decision. Now you may be thinking, if there's one more public comment period, why the urgency now? Well, history has shown that the best way, the best opportunity to protect regions of the country is to get your region out of this plan at this stage. In fact, if your region, in our case California, we are included in that proposed program, it's going to be very, very difficult to get California and other regions removed. So not a time for complacency. And again, thank you all of you for being here. We do expect that this final decision could be made by the Trump administration as soon as the end of the year. So how can you take action? So Jennifer already talked about those postcards. You'll see them here. Very easy. You can sign your name, personalize it with a sentence or two about why you are opposed to offshore drilling. We are going to send these postcards into the federal government tomorrow to make sure that they get there in time. So that is the first way you can take action. The second way is you can go straight to the source. So at the tables in the back, you'll see these one-pagers. That QR code will take you directly to regulations.gov. Now this will take a few minutes to craft your own comment, but especially if you represent a group, a local government, a business, a tribe, some kind of institution, this is a fantastic way to get your official comment on the record. We have a lot of resources in the Surfrider Toolkit. We will email that to you tomorrow, talking points, sample comments, to make this as easy as possible. And a third way, arguably even the fastest way, be to complete a Surfrider action alert. You see the one-pager. We have these also at the back of the room. A QR code will take you directly to that action alert. This is not a petition. This will generate official comments on the record. The way our action alert platform works for this comment period, it will actually print out a comment letter from you and be sent by US mail into the US government. So want you to complete that. If you're going to do it very soon, because we are sending these in batches and envelopes literally every couple days. So again, please choose one of those methods and please get your comment on the official public record. I want to talk about the importance of elected officials and a personal thank you from me for all the outstanding elected officials who are here tonight, and even more important, are demonstrating incredible leadership in fighting this proposal. There are a number of ways that elected officials can and are taking action. One, of course, submitting those official comments on the record, but doing everything from passing local government resolutions to passing state laws and policies to federal legislation, a variety of things to make it more difficult, more expensive. In a minute, we're going to hear from Congressman Huffman, who is one of our national leaders in Washington, D.C. in fighting new offshore drilling. I don't want to steal his thunder, but we have legislation to permanently protect the California coast. And that's our goal at Surfrider. We want to permanently protect not just the West Coast, but all U.S. regions from new offshore drilling. And finally, the importance of businesses. Engaging businesses in this comment period is critically important. We have on the West Coast what's called BAPAC, the Business Alliance for Protecting the Pacific Coast. Over 8,000 businesses who have officially joined this coalition in opposition to new offshore drilling. If you're a part of a business owner, you work for a business, please join BAPAC. It's absolutely free. It takes about 60 seconds. You can go to this website, defendthepacific.org, sign up, and nationally we have, I believe, over 60,000 businesses formally opposed to new offshore drilling. So one of the best things we can do to protect our coast is to create this business case for protecting our environment. And with that, I am out of time, so we are going to shift to our esteemed speakers, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jennifer Savage.
Thank you, Pete. And as Pete said, we have an esteemed member of Congress, longtime ocean champion, Congressman Jared Huffman. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jen and Pete and Surfrider and all of you. It is great to see you, and I'm so grateful that you are stepping up to be part of this public comment process. You know, for so long, I think we just assumed no one would be dumb enough to propose new drilling off the California coast, because in the past, when George W. Bush floated the idea, a bipartisan chorus on the West Coast let him know what we think about that. And it's not a partisan issue when it comes to people who live in coastal communities. Never has been. That's why Republicans, Democrats, Independents all passed that moratorium in state waters many, many years ago to protect our California coast. And then when Trump 1 came along and floated this dumb idea again, he had to walk that back because it just is met with so much opposition. But, you know, to the extent that we've in the past assumed that this just couldn't happen, I'm especially grateful for tonight because this is not a drill this time. We've never seen an administration that does some of the things these guys are doing. I didn't have, invading Venezuela to take over and run their country and seize their oil wealth on my bingo card. I didn't have invading Greenland and military in our streets, so many other things. So just know that this is not a drill this time. We're going to fight. I think we're going to win, but it's a bigger fight than we've had before. It's going to require a more sustained fight by all of us, frankly, because if you've assumed, as I think I did even for many, many years, that the state itself, we've got our great state legislators and the administration here, you'll hear from them in a moment. If we assume that they would never let the infrastructure come ashore, they would use the State Lands Commission and all of our jurisdiction in the state waters and on the shore to stop anything from happening. With this administration and the kind of over-the-top things they do, you can't assume that they would even move the oil that way. They might move tankers right out into federal waters and take the oil somewhere else to bring it onshore and refine it. So we've got to take this very seriously. It is not a drill. And we are in the public comment period. This is the time when your government is supposed to be listening to you. On the off chance that someone in the Trump administration still cares about what people and communities think, we need to give them an earful right now. And I have the great honor of batting lead off in the public comment period. So I want to just make a humble suggestion to the Trump administration about what part of the California coast they should open up to new drilling. None of it. Not 1 inch. We know how this story ends here in California. We know that it ends with some of the images that Surfrider has shown you here tonight. We know what it means for our $1.7 billion coastal economy in this state. We're not going to allow all of that to be put at risk. And as we fight back, we're going to be joined by the other communities that they've proposed to put at risk. Because it's not just us. It's Oregon, it's Washington, it's all of Alaska, and it's the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to fight back against this. I think we are going to win, but it's going to be one heck of a fight, and that's why I'm so glad that all of you are here, and our community leaders and elected officials are here to make this chorus of opposition unmistakably clear. I'll just say one more thing before I yield to all of you to be part of the public comment process. And Pete, you alluded to this a moment ago. I've carried the legislation to permanently protect California and the rest of the West Coast from new drilling since I came to Congress. This is my 14th year. So I've been at this for some time, and in the past, I think many people have assumed, well, you know, that's a great popular bill, but it's probably not the end of the world if it doesn't pass, because, you know, it's a threat that doesn't seem that urgent or imminent. I think this experience we're going through right now should change the way we think about that in a big way. We're not going to be able to pass that legislation in this Congress, although I'm pushing it. But the stars will align soon. We will be able to legislate permanent protection, and we need to remember, let's fight this fight right here and now, but for the long haul, we need to codify that permanent protection with legislation, and we need to do that together too. So thanks for being in this fight. And as we say in Congress, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Congressman Huffman. We're so grateful for your leadership in DC and here. And you get to represent the most beautiful part of the California coast. So, all right, next up, Pete, I will need your assistance with the video side of things. Not everybody who wanted to speak could be here in person, but we do have videos from Representative Kevin Mullen and also Senator Adam Schiff.
Hi everyone, I'm sorry I can't join you in person today, but I am so encouraged to learn of the turnout of people up and down the coast to these hearings. They're so important as they warn of the economic risks and catastrophic impacts of offshore drilling in California and the impacts on marine life and coastal communities. In 1969, the Santa Barbara oil spill resulted in extensive damage for the region, both to our environment and our local economy. Then in 2015, the Refugio spill leaked hundreds of thousands of gallons of crude oil into the environment, resulting in millions and millions of dollars of damages to marine habitats, wildlife, and recreation. After the Refugio spill, Californians had had enough. The Santa Ynez unit was forced to shut down their operations. But now, Sable Offshore Corporation has been trying to restart the pipelines responsible for that same spill, an action that's in direct violation of the California Coastal Act. The Trump administration then heralded its significant achievement, so to speak, of Sable announcing that it's restarting the pipelines and offshore oil extraction, a direct violation of state agency directives. In November, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management published their disastrous 5-year offshore drilling plan, which opens up federal waters in the Pacific Ocean to offshore drilling. This plan proposes 6 lease sales along the coast of California beginning in 2027. This risk is further magnified by the administration's dismantling of NOAA and its oil spill prevention and response programs, where 30% of their staff were laid off or retired this year. The nation currently is hamstrung in our ability to respond to oil spills. Yet the administration pushes forward with opening up even more coastline to offshore drilling. It makes no sense. This is a potentially catastrophic situation. This 5-year offshore drilling plan must not move forward. I stand with you and all in opposition to this plan, speaking in a loud collective voice, the same voice that resulted in the creation of Earth Day and ultimately the EPA. I've long understood the importance of preserving and protecting California's natural spaces, which is why I became a member of the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, specifically as ranking member of the Fisheries, Water, and Wildlife Subcommittee. This position has allowed me to fight for environmental priorities like the ones that we are gathered here today to discuss. As Sable laid out their intentions last year, I joined my colleagues in raising concerns about this illegal restart by Sable and pushed for a proper environmental review. I've repeatedly warned how Trump's grudge against California could lead to the next major oil spill, especially with estimates that a future spill from that corroded pipeline could be double the size of the 2015 spill. I also led the call to demand answers from the administration on its involvement and influence in restarting oil drilling operations. Not surprisingly, the administration has consistently been non-responsive to these requests. Today, I urge all of us to continue this fight. We must stand together in the effort and remind the administration that we will not stay quietly on the sidelines as they continue to ignore California law and the will of its people. The proposed offshore drilling plan is currently open for public comment on the Federal Register until January 23rd. This fight is far from over, and we must continue to use our voice to keep our beaches, coastal economies, and marine life safe from another oil spill. We must stand as one to protect the only planet we have. Thank you again. Hi, everyone.
Congressman Kevin Mullen.
Hi everyone, Congressman Kevin Mullen here. I wish I could be with you in person today to discuss offshore drilling, a dangerous threat we are facing here in California. I want to begin by thanking the Surfrider Foundation for its leadership and tireless work protecting our coast. As a lifelong Bay Area resident and representative for California's 15th Congressional District in San Mateo County and San Francisco, I know firsthand the importance of protecting our coastal communities and ecosystems. The Trump administration's new offshore drilling plan poses a serious threat to California's coastline, which is one of the most valuable and treasured in the world. In the Bay Area alone, we have billions of dollars in property values, including homes and critical infrastructure, essential industries like commercial fishing and recreational activities, and sensitive species along our coastline. Trump's reckless offshore drilling proposal endangers our environment, our economy, and coastal communities that depend on a healthy ocean. It puts the interests of oil executives ahead of our coastal ecosystems and ignores the bipartisan opposition from Californians up and down the coast who have made it abundantly clear that offshore drilling has no place here. California's coastline has already suffered from the dire consequences of offshore drilling, and for decades our nation has seen disastrous incidents like the Santa Barbara, Exxon Valdez, and Deep Horizon oil spills. These spills cause not only extreme environmental damage, but they also hurt our tourism industry and suppress the value of coastal homes. Spills can also cost taxpayers billions in cleanup costs and ecosystem restoration. I have proudly supported multiple legislative efforts, including bills and demands to the Trump administration to stop new offshore oil and gas leasing off the California coast. As a member of the House Natural Resources Committee, and now as a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, I will continue to strongly oppose this harmful plan and push for an immediate halt to any drilling efforts off our shores. And as a father who grew up visiting our coast and who now cherishes the ability for me to take my kids to our local beaches, I join all of you in this fight to protect California's coast. Thank you again to the Surfrider Foundation for bringing communities together, protecting our coastal ecosystems, and bringing attention to this dangerous proposal. Thank you.
So thanks for your help, Pete. I would like to invite up Chair Geary from the Tamian Nation. Wonderful.
Thank you. Mishmi Uyakste, good evening. Karakat Kirina Geary, Wetrashmin Tamian Tak, California Tak. My name is Kirina Geary. I'm chairwoman for Tamian Nation, or tribe of Silicon Valley. In our language, Kale is the name of the ocean. She is a living being. She is a cultural landscape. Tribal cultural resources does not stop at the shoreline. Offshore water holds submerged villages, fishing areas, canoe routes, ceremonial relationships that predate the United States. These places are a living culture, even when they're underwater and not visible on Western maps. What happens offshore directly affects our long-term survival as a people. When drilling begins, animals are affected immediately. Seismic blast drives whales and fish away, destroys spawning areas, and damages food webs long before any oil is produced. If there were an oil spill off the shore of California, off the coast of California, tribal people would be unable to fish, gather, harvest ocean foods, not for weeks or months, but potentially decades. History shows that oil contamination can persist in sediment and marine food webs for over 30 years or more. Shellfish, kelp, near-shore fish absorb toxins that cannot be seen, smelled, but remain unsafe to eat long after the crews leave. For tribes, that contamination does more than closes fisheries, it closes culture. When we cannot safely harvest, we cannot teach the next generation how to harvest properly, use ceremonial songs associated with gathering, the language associated with prayers to give thanks, the preparation of our traditional foods, our dance ceremonies associated with the first yearly harvest, or the stories associated with each species. It is our connection to the past, present, and future, and it can all be lost in just one generation. This is not a temporary impact, it's irreversible. Offshore oil and gas activities also threaten biodiversity that our culture depends on. Whales, fish, kelp forests, the entire coastal food web. Environmental harm and cultural harm cannot be separated. The federal trust responsibility requires more than consultation. It requires protection. The sovereignty and stewardship role of California Coastal Tribe needs to be restored, respected, resourced, and uplifted for all our benefit. Avoidance, not mitigation, is the only meaningful protection for offshore tribal cultural landscapes and living marine systems. Once the ocean is contaminated, there is no mitigation that can restore what's lost. You can't remediate the next generation of cultural loss. This decision will not only affect this generation, but it will determine whether future generations will be able to stand on the coast and know our stories, our songs, our ceremonies of our ancestors who had a relationship with Kale. In today's society, we exploit the earth for short-term financial gain. This cannot be sustained. At some point, society as we know it will collapse, and we will need Kale to survive, not just for Indian people, but for all people. The Tamiya Nation calls on BOEM to remove California offshore waters from this program and uphold its responsibility to protect what cannot be replaced. Shurudoyu Tamiya Takwas. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce, representing California Governor Gavin Newsom's office, Sarah Amansada, California Deputy Secretary for Federal Affairs.
Thanks, Jen. And thank you so much to Surfrider for organizing all of us and making sure that the people's voices are heard. You have done such a great job of bringing people together up and down the California coast. I also want to thank Congressman Jared Huffman for representing us so well on this issue and on so many issues. I'm proud to be here representing the state, and I want to start by echoing Governor Newsom's definitive remarks on this topic. The proposal to open California's coast to new offshore oil and gas drilling is dead on arrival. California stands in strong opposition to this proposal, as leaders both Democrat and Republican have done in previous proposals to open our coast to drilling. We are well on our way to achieving 100% clean energy by 2045, and already on sunny and windy days, there are hours that our grid is running solely on clean energy. Our state and our thriving private sector continue to invest heavily in clean energy and modern technologies of the future. It is utterly preposterous to think that we would change course or risk our beautiful coastline and ocean to return to the risky, polluted, and outdated energy sources of the past. And it is a waste of time in our collective race to reduce climate emissions to avoid the most severe impacts of climate change. Because climate change is already at our doorstep. Earlier this month, here in Marin and here in Sausalito, we experienced severe flooding. King tides, coupled with extreme storm events, closed businesses and left people trapped in their homes. We cannot afford to lose time or focus in our pursuit of a livable planet for the next generation. When I told my son Henry about today's hearing, well, first of all, he said it sounded boring. But also he asked me, is it going to work? And I said yes, and that's for two reasons. One, is that when we say no to offshore drilling, we are in good company. This issue unites people across the country and across the political spectrum because we're all looking at the same facts and can see that the risk of an oil spill simply does not justify the marginal potential energy. This issue sparks resistance from unlikely allies across the country and here in California. From military leaders who point out that offshore drilling could undercut our national security military operations and interferes with our shipping routes. And from Florida Republicans who know that Florida's tourist-based economy relies on beautiful oil-free beaches. There aren't many issues that unite California Democrats and Florida Republicans, but this is one of them. And the second reason that I'm optimistic and I believe we can make a difference is because leaders at all levels of government, Governor Newsom, and many of our leaders here today, all of you, have committed to use every single tool in the toolbox to stop this if needed. I hope federal decision makers are listening and hear us, and please help us make sure that they do. Now is the time to come together and submit your comments before January 23rd. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up, we have Assembly Member Damon Connolly. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to be here. As mentioned, I'm Damon Connolly, representing Assembly District 12, which is all of Marin County and southern Sonoma County. So we're in my district now, not too shabby, right? It's amazing to represent this area. So at the beginning, I just wanted to say, for the record, anytime an event is called a people's hearing, count me in 10 out of 10 times as a participant. Because yet again, and let me know if you agree, it's gonna be the people. It's gonna be all of us working together, particularly in the times we find ourselves living, to again, come together to bring about the change that we want. And also in this case, to prevent the bad things from happening that we don't want. Are you with me, people? Yeah. Something Congressman Huffman said reminded me that, you know, I grew up as a kid in the Bay Area. I'm a California native throughout my life. We literally took it as an article of faith that there would not be new offshore oil drilling in California. And this wasn't just some sort of theoretical notion or a hope. It was due to the heartbreak and the hard work that ensued from what we saw as a direct results of offshore oil drilling. Some of those have already been recounted. Even more recently, in 2021, the San Pedro Bay pipeline broke and spilled 24,696 gallons of crude oil into the waters. And that was not an isolated incident. In some manner, there are oil spills going on in our state every single month right now. That's what the stakes are as we meet here today, and we want to hear from you. We've heard about the impacts on our wildlife, our habitat, our tourism industry, our local economies. But let's even get more basic. The pristine coast that we have as Californians is something that is admired and enjoyed by people from around the world. We do not want to have that changed in a negative way. This threat will only be worsened with the introduction of new oil drilling off our shores. So what I want to say, and I know my colleague Chris Rogers is going to amplify that, our job as your state representatives in the legislature are to work with you to protect our climate progress and ensure the health and wellness of our marine ecosystems and our coastline. So a couple of things I wanted to mention in particular, and thank you to Sarah and the rest of Governor Newsom's team. In October 2020, Governor Newsom signed his Nature-Based Solutions Executive Order which set 30 by 30 goals for the state. I know a number of you worked on that. These goals aim to conserve 30% of California's land and coastal waters by 2030. California has made significant progress in achieving these goals, indeed by protecting 737.6 thousand acres of coastal waters today. While our state has protected 21.9% of coastal waters out of the 30% goal set by 2030, the attacks on the environment by the federal administration continues to jeopardize California's climate targets. Offshore oil drilling, and it's amazing we even have to say this, goes directly against our 30 by 30 statewide goals. It will release harmful pollutants that disproportionately impact our coastal communities. While the Trump administration continues to threaten California's coastlines, my colleagues and I are committed to actually protecting our ecosystems. Thank you, all voters, everyone who worked on it. In 2024, California voters passed Proposition 4, the climate bond. Can we give it up for that? All right. Which provided historic investments for preserving California's environmental progress. The climate bond allocated $1.2 billion for coastal resilience programs that will help increase coastal and ocean sustainability, protect coastal lands, waters, and communities from sea level rise and flooding. So we're both on the budget subcommittee that allocates Proposition 4's money. The legislature approved the first major allocation of funds, which invested $279 million into various coastal resilience and conservation grants across the state. So I am very grateful for the strong coalition of environmental advocates who are yet again mobilizing against these threats, exploring every pathway to protect our coast. Again, we will need to stick together and work hard to make our voices heard on this. I hope you know you have a strong ally in my office. My door is always open. Thank you again, and let's keep it up.
Thank you, Assemblymember Connolly. We timed it so you'd have the sunset glow for your district. Yes. So next up, we have Assemblymember Chris Rogers. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Rogers. I represent the 2nd Assembly District, about a fourth of the California coast, running from Sonoma County all the way to Oregon. And when I tell people about my community, I talk to them a lot about the history of the extraction economy and feeling the wakes of industries that have come in and removed all of the resources from our locals and left behind devastation, remediation. And that really is the history up in our area, whether it's from fish, timber, cannabis, and offshore oil, we can't allow to be added to that list. What we know is that Trump, his policies have always been geared towards the wealthy few and have put at a disadvantage our middle class and our middle class communities. And this is just yet another proposal. More offshore oil drilling won't benefit my constituents. In fact, none of them are gonna see the economic benefit. They're not gonna see a change at the pump. It's Trump's friends who will line their pockets and instead leave behind the potential of devastating our local economies. One analysis found that even the rosiest projections of the economy and the impact that this would have on the economy is 1/10 of the total economy that we've been able to build in our coastal communities from fishing and from sustainable industries. And what we know is that he wants to both privatize the economic output while socializing the input on our communities, leaving behind oil wells, unplugged wells, our offshore infrastructure, and we're gonna say hell no to that here in California. I wanna thank you all for being here and having your comments counted, and I'm gonna leave you with a couple of additional things that you can do to help. We have introduced a piece of legislation in Sacramento, AB 1536, one of my colleagues from the Central Coast, Don Addis, that will protect California's land from the infrastructure related to oil drilling. We have a bill that is coming from Rick Zabur, one of our colleagues, that would do an overlay of our local land use zoning on all of the state and federal forests and federal lands to protect those from Trump attacks as well. We have encouraged and funded the Attorney General to make sure that he is using every legal avenue to try to block any offshore oil drilling proposals in California. And we need you to also advocate at the local level, like many of my folks from Sonoma County that I see here have done, to get your local Board of Supervisors to also pass resolutions of non-compliance with the landing of offshore oil infrastructure. We need to fight this at every level of government. We need to fight this by talking to our neighbors and organizing. I truly think that this is the last gasp of a dying industry, the petroleum industry. Let's kick its ass in California, and let's move on to a sustainable economy that works for everybody. Thank you.
Local elected officials. We have Supervisor Dennis Rodoni from Marin. Ah, there you are. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, I didn't know all those people were behind me. Nice to see you all here. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to the Surfrider Foundation for organizing this really important day. I'm Dennis Rodoni, and my district, District 4, in Marin County, represents the Pacific coastline from Sonoma County, almost to San Francisco, and the economies of our coastal villages like Stinson Beach, Point Reyes Station, and Dillon's Beach that depend on our pristine coastline, land, and waters, as well as the jobs it produces. District 4 is deeply connected to the land, the water, and one another. I stand here firmly opposed to offshore oil drilling like all of you, and I encourage you to send the cards in today and send your letters in as soon as possible. Marin residents have made it clear we will not put our coastline, environment, or local economy at risk for short-term fossil fuel extraction. Marin has been a leader in stopping offshore drilling since the 1980s, when the Board of Supervisors passed similar resolutions opposing offshore drilling and an ordinance to ban the development of onshore facilities. The county also built momentum for the California Coastal Sanctuary Act of 1994, which prohibited new offshore oil and gas leases in state waters. This strategy continued to the creation and expansion of our national marine sanctuaries here in Marin County. Environmental protection is part of Marin's identity. Our coastal supports recreation, tourism, and a local economy that depends on clean water and healthy ecosystems. Offshore drilling threatens all of that. In Marin, we continue to take action. In 2018, I was honored to sponsor and reaffirm our opposition to offshore drilling. In 2020, with the help of Richard Charter, we passed an ordinance requiring a voter approval before any onshore infrastructure tied to offshore drilling can be developed in Marin. In 2025, we submitted letters of opposition to the new federal offshore leases in the Pacific and joint local government continental shelf coordination program. Aligning with other California counties to protect our coast through a coordinated effort is important. This is protecting our future, our clean air, our safe beaches, and our resilient economy. Marin has led before, and we will continue to lead. We are not trading our coast for oil profits. We stand for people, planets, and generations to come. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Supervisor Rodoni. Next up, I'd like to invite Supervisor Ray Mueller from San Mateo County.
Well, thank you all for having me. And I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. It's a Friday night after work, and for those who are going to read this transcript later on, I just want them to know this room is full of people. My name is Ray Mueller, and I serve as the county supervisor for the 3rd District of San Mateo County. For those of you who don't know, my district encompasses nearly the entire length of the San Mateo County coastline, stretching from the rugged cliffs in the Pier Pacifica down past alongside the spectacular Fitzgerald Marine Reserve to the legendary swells of Mavericks through the working waterfront port of Pillar Point Harbor in Half Moon Bay, all the way down to the sensitive elephant seal rookeries in Ana Nuevo. And I stand here today to speak for our coastal residents, for our fishermen, for our tourism industry, and for the hundreds of thousands of visitors who visit our coast every year, and for our coastal marine life and coastal ecosystems, and for our county. We strongly oppose oil drilling off our coast, and we will fight to stop it. The relationship between our coast and the Pacific is not a boundary. It teems with life. Our coastal prairie grasslands, redwood forests, and our fish-bearing creeks are inextricably linked to the cold, nutrient-rich waters off the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary off our coast. The ecosystem is a global hotspot for biodiversity. When the seasonal upwelling brings cold water to our shores, it fuels a fuel web that sustains everything from our local fishing fleets that launch from Pillar Point Harbor to the whales who are migrating that you see jumping out of the waves in Pacifica. To introduce oil drilling into all of this delicate interface is just insane. It's not just a threat to the water. It's a direct assault on the integrity of the sea life and to the residents who call District 3 their home. History has taught us a painful lesson. Where we drill, we spill. In San Mateo County, that's a risk we cannot afford, and we will not tolerate. A single leak would shatter our coastside economy. For example, the city of Half Moon Bay, it relies on transit occupancy tax from the Ritz-Carlton. Our small businesses rely on the tourists in those rooms. Tourists don't come to oil-ridden beaches. They don't come to see oil derricks off their coast. Our fishermen depend on a healthy ecosystem that's thriving. They're already having a hard time with the crab. A leak there would absolutely destroy them. A single leak would devastate biodiversity, and our waters are home to dozens of species of marine mammals and over hundreds of species of birds that would be devastated by toxic crude. The San Mateo County Board of Supervisors and our county's residents have a long and proud history of protecting our coast side. Its health is the legacy that we inherited, and we will fight to preserve it for future generations. We stand opposed, and we will fight in the courts as long as it takes. The waters off our coast are not for sale. Our coastal ecosystems are not sacrificial offerings, and we will stand firm in our resolve to never see drilling off our coast, now or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Mueller. Next up, we have the former mayor of Sausalito, this beautiful area where we are right now, Janelle Kelman.
Well, welcome everybody to the Bay Model and the beautiful town of Sausalito. Thank you so much to Surfrider for all of your hard work. And thank you to all the elected officials who came to speak your mind. And more than anything, thank you to all of you for doing this, for showing up on a Friday night. I'm always reminded of the famous Margaret Mead quote, "Never doubt what a small group of committed citizens can do to change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has." My name is Janelle Kelman. I'm the former mayor of Sausalito. I'm an environmental lawyer. I'm the founder of the nonprofit Center for Sea Rise Solutions. If I say to you November 7th, 2007, anybody have a memory? Costco Busan. I just get chills even thinking about it. I was on the board of San Francisco Baykeeper. Kind of freshly out of law school, not quite sure what my job was, I was quickly called into action, and I had two jobs on that day. The first was to meet with reporters, and I was stunned. I mean, what can you say? But the second was to go down to Fort Baker and to help birds covered in oil and pull them out of the water and try to clean them. Now, bunker fuel, 53,000 gallons of it, is the dirtiest, worst kind of fuel you can have invading our waters. What is happening now with the Trump administration is a non-negotiable for us. And I will do everything in my power in California to support everybody in this room to fight against this. And so I'm here, I think, kind of as a pep talk in terms of what California can do, because we have the power. So number one, let's use California's coastal authority. The California Coastal Commission is not ceremonial. Under the Coastal Act, projects and activities affecting the coastal zone must meet strict requirements. Let's mandate those, follow up, let's bear witness to what is happening in real time. Second, we can use the Coastal Zone Management Act like a shield, right? It's not enough for California to be a beacon of hope, we must be a fortress. Even when federal agencies are involved, California can require what's called federal consistency. If a federal offshore action affects our coastal zone, we can object, and we will, all of our voices at once. Third, let's use the State Lands Commission where it matters. The California State Lands Commission manages state tidelands and submerged lands, much of this water and submerged lands over here, and oversees leases and rights of way on state property. If a project needs access through state waters, not on our watch. We build a legal record now, because litigation is won on the record. And this is where being a lawyer matters. And this is where all of you bearing witness matters. If you see something, write it down, take a picture. It matters in the long run. We must organize locally, regionally, and statewide. Cities and counties can adopt coastal plans, we can pass resolutions, we can coordinate with harbors and ports and mobilize stakeholders. This is just the beginning for us. We must stay vigilant, we must stay energized, we have to support one another. As someone who cares deeply about this state, about this community, about our coastlines, I have my, if you can see it, my United Nations SUG pin here. I believe California deserves leaders who enable us to fight back. And I know we have that with folks we've heard today, and I know we'll continue to do so. So thank you for all your involvement and encouragement.
All right, stay energized. I like that. That's my mantra for the rest of the night. All right, next up, we have the former, we have Maria Brown of the former, it just says former Greater Farallones, I'm sorry. I know the Greater Farallones are still there. So, sorry for flubbing your intro.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you, Surfrider, for organizing tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. This is incredibly important. This is just the beginning, as you've heard. What I'm going to talk about is going to be a little bit different than what you've heard tonight. So I'm Maria Brown. I'm the former superintendent of NOAA's Greater Farallones, Cordell Bank, and Northern Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuaries. So I'm one of those federal people who used to get the comments and have to respond to them. So I'm going to share just some information on how you can be the most effective with your comments. So, and I also want to share, I have worked along the Central California coast and on offshore, in the offshore waters for over 30 years. And I have an in-depth knowledge of this environment and what's at risk. I have experienced multiple oil spills and have had to be one of those first responders on the ground, and I'm the one who signed off to say those beaches are clean enough for us. So this draft proposed program states that the purpose and need for expanded offshore oil and gas leasing include meeting the needs of U.S. citizens. And this is very important. What they have to respond to is to the purpose and needs of this action. So this is what we need to refute. So it's meeting the needs of U.S. citizens, solidifying the United States as a global energy leader, achieving energy security and resilience, and employing Americans to increase their standard of living. So that's why we need to drill. Offshore drilling along California's coast fails to meet all of these objectives and poses an unacceptable risk to irreplaceable natural, economic, and cultural resources. So let's go through their needs that they're stating. First, meeting the needs of U.S. citizens. Offshore drilling off California does not meet the needs of Americans. The United States already exports more oil than it imports. Sacrificing one of the most biologically productive and economically valuable coastlines in the entire world in order to export additional fossil fuels does not serve the public interest, does not serve the American interest. Okay, let's go to point number 2. Solidifying the United States as a global energy leader. Okay, I'm not gonna laugh. Petroleum is the energy of the past. The global energy transition is underway, with countries investing heavily in renewable energy and clean technology. Continuing to expand offshore oil drilling will not solidify U.S. leadership in the future. It will lock the nation into outdated infrastructure and delay progress towards sustainability, competitive energy systems. The unleashing American energy through expanded offshore drilling risks setting the United States back decades rather than positioning us as leaders in the 21st century energy economy. Okay, point 3, achieving energy security and resilience. Offshore oil drilling does not enhance U.S. energy security or resilience. As you heard, there are military experts saying this does not help our security. True energy security comes from diversifying energy sources, investing in renewables, and reducing dependence on fuels that are vulnerable to global market source shocks and catastrophic incidents. Okay, number 4, employing Americans and contributing to the economy. Oil and gas jobs come at significant human, environmental, and economic costs. Offshore drilling is dangerous work. The communities near refineries face elevated risks of asthma, cancer, neurological and cardiovascular damage, and blood disorders. When accidents occur, and they do occur, the societal costs are immense. For example, the Deepwater Horizon disaster alone resulted in more than $65 billion, the B, in cleanup costs and damages, impacting 5 states, coastal communities, fisheries, tourism, and wildlife. In contrast, California's healthy coastal waters underpin a thriving, sustainable economy. California's beaches and coastal communities make the state a premier travel destination, generating over $157 billion, so they make money, in spending and supporting approximately 1.2 million jobs in 2024. These benefits are ongoing and renewable, unless they are destroyed by oil spills or industrialization of the coast. Okay, their last point, or my last point. Irreplaceable marine ecosystems at risk. So stretching from Mendocino County to Santa Barbara County and extending offshore across the continental shelf lie the Greater Farallones, Cordell Bay, Monterey Bay, and Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuaries, which protect some of the most iconic and productive ocean ecosystems in the world. The region contains one of only 4 major ocean upwelling zones globally, making it a critical hotspot for marine life. Seabirds travel as far as from South America and the Hawaiian Islands and New Zealand to feed here, right here in our waters. Sea turtles migrate from Indonesia to feed here to eat the jellies. Endangered and threatened whales journey from Central America and across the Pacific Ocean to feed here along our California coast. Actually, all these species feed right here off of Marin's coast. These waters also feed Americans. Approximately 300 million pounds of seafood are harvested from California's water every year. As I mentioned, I have personally witnessed oil spills in these waters, and the impacts are devastating. I can't even talk to you about them because it's so emotional to see and experience. They damage beaches, wetlands, wildlife, fisheries, and coastal communities. Deepwater offshore drilling is among the most dangerous forms of oil extraction involving complex technology, harsh weather, and high transportation risks, and the potential for catastrophic spills and high worker fatality rates. So this draft proposal to lease areas off of California to ship oil overseas is not worth destroying one of the world's most biologically productive environments. So to be most effective, moving forward, send those postcards. Also send a letter. The letters are so important. They mean a lot. And the more you can challenge them on that purpose and need, they have to respond back to you on their purpose and need and your challenge. They have to respond in writing. So make them respond and answer those questions. How is this really going to help us? So, by saving our coast, we'll save our future.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your dedication to our national marine sanctuaries. Next up, Sarah Bates. Great to see you, Sarah, representing commercial fishing.
That's a tough act to follow. Thanks, Maria. And I'm not just an audience plant who happened to know the date of the Costco Busan. I've actually had that at the top of my head because I've been thinking about that lately. That was about 5 days before we were supposed to set our crab gear to go fishing that year. And you know, some of the boats, the ones that are much more prepared and have their act together, you know, they were ready to go. So the morning of November 7th, there were a lot of the boats suddenly lined up underneath the hoist to take their crab traps off of the boats so that we could all go and drag oil booms behind our boats. And we were actually a really important part of that cleanup effort, but that's not what we're trained to do. That's not our job. That shouldn't be happening. My name is Sarah Bates. I fish commercially out of San Francisco. I am the president of the Institute for Fisheries Resources, and it is a group that's basically a bunch of fishermen who are fighting for habitat, both marine habitat and salmon river habitat, because that's also just as important, it turns out. And IFR has been having this fight for 40 years, and I listened to some of the people that came before me at IFR, and they talk about the fights in the 90s about offshore oil drilling and how they thought that they put it to rest. But like so many bad ideas, where a couple people stand to make a whole bunch of money, it keeps coming back like a zombie. So here we are again. I'm actually really, really encouraged to see a bunch of people coming out for this, sticking up for this. I don't think I have to convince you about the many reasons why oil spills are bad for our beaches. I would like to broaden that a little bit. I've heard coastline and beaches and shore and all of these things. I would like to remind you that that's the edge. That's just the edge. The ocean is giant, it's so big. And I would also like to remind you that where we see oil spills is the surface. And that is also just one dimension of it. The ocean is much, much larger than just its edges. And as somebody who makes my living there, I would also like to remind you that the effects of oil drilling done correctly are going to kill our fisheries here in California. And this is just one example, these polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that are produced in best of conditions have a threat of wiping out entire cohorts of our fisheries. That means salmon, juvenile salmon after they come out of the rivers. That means crab. That means the shrimp that we have. That means rockfish. That means albacore that are migrating through our waters. That means black cod. That means all of the millions of tons of seafood that we deliver here in California is at risk. That means all of the coastal communities that are supported by your commercial fisheries are at risk. And I know that there's a whole lot of money to be made in offshore drilling, but you can't eat it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up, we have Tomas Valadez from Azul.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tomas Valadez. I'm the California Policy Manager at Azul. Azul is a Latino-led and serving ocean justice organization, and I'm here in strong opposition to this 5-year plan, which seeks to reopen and expand offshore oil drilling along the California coast. This proposal threatens not only our precious marine ecosystems, but also the well-being and cultural heritage of the communities Azul represents. Coastal protection is not a privilege for many communities of color, including Latino and indigenous communities. It is directly tied to health and economic opportunity, as well as heritage. For Latino families, this is not an abstract policy debate. Many of our communities live near refineries, ports, and industrial corridors. We already shoulder the burden of toxic pollution and higher rates of asthma and other health issues. Expanding offshore oil drilling only deepens these injustices while locking us into more fossil fuel dependence at a time when we must move forward toward clean, renewable energy. Let it be clear, our coast is not for sale, our communities are not expendable, and we will continue to stand up together to defend California's coast and our collective future. Thank you.
Next, we have Adriana Guerrero and Jessica from Salted Roots.
Wow. I gotta get my notes. Okay. Hello, and thank you to Surfrider Foundation and the local chapters for creating this space for community voices through today's and multiple people's hearing. My name is Adriana Guerrero Nardon, and I have the honor and joy of being the Executive Director of Salted Roots.
I'm Jessica Knox. I'm a Surf Program Lead and the Youth Advocacy Specialist at Salted Roots.
Salted Roots is an Oakland-based organization working at the intersection of ocean access, youth leadership, environmental justice, and coastal protection. Our mission is to cultivate a surf culture rooted in collective power, equity, and love, and a reverence for the earth. We do this by deepening community well-being, amplifying a narrative of abundance, increasing access to the ocean, and centering the intuitive knowledge of girls, women, and gender-expansive people of color. And today, I bring a perspective as an organizational leader, ocean justice advocate, surfer, and just general ocean lover, and as a non-binary, mixed person of color whose relationship to the ocean is deeply shaped by community, culture, and care. For us in our communities, offshore oil drilling is not distant or theoretical. It directly threatens coastal access and safety, water quality, marine life, public health, especially for communities that already face the greatest environmental burdens. These are the same shorelines where young people, like Jessica, and our communities learn to surf, to steward the ocean, and understand their place within it. At Salted Roots, we see every day how access to clean, safe coastline supports healing, confidence, and leadership. Offshore drilling puts those relationships at risk by prioritizing extraction over well-being and short-term profit over long-term responsibility. Environmental justice requires us to name the harm is not evenly distributed. Communities of color and frontline communities are often the first to experience pollution and the last to be protected from it. Approving or expanding offshore drilling deepens these inequities while shifting the burden onto future generations. Our work spans the Bay Area at the community level and extends statewide through the Surf Justice Collective, which includes our friends at Black Surf Santa Cruz, Queer Surf, Humor de Colores, City Surf Project, Paddle for Peace, Black Surfers Collective, Native Like Water, Black Thought Surfers, and an Outdoor Outreach, and many other coalitions that we're a part of with Azul. We stand alongside youth leaders, families, cultural practitioners, and environmental advocates who bring different perspectives but share a common truth. The coast is a place of life, learning, and healing, not a sacrifice zone. Stopping offshore drilling is about choosing a different future, one where youth inherit clean water, where public health is protected, and where our relationship to the ocean is rooted in reverence rather than exploitation. We're here to say clearly and collectively, protect our coast, protect our communities, and protect the generations who will inherit what we decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Next up, we have Jeff Bohm from the Marine Mammal Center.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's not a pleasure to be here talking on this subject. Jeff Bohm with the Marine Mammal Center, a Marine Mammal Hospital, and Ocean Conservation Organization. Our position on this is really simple. No, we've known this is a bad idea for decades. We've seen the detrimental impact of this bad idea, and we know that there are other solutions. I can't talk to you about this, though, without talking to you about the Marine Mammal Protection Act and the Endangered Species Act, and without taking you on a quick trip through last year at the Marine Mammal Center. Last winter, we saw the beginning of a toxicosis, a toxicity that impacted seals and sea lions and small dolphins all across the California coastline that was more immense, more potent, and of a greater duration than we have ever seen. We also, right on the heels of that, saw whales in and around San Francisco Bay in numbers that we had not seen. We had 26 strandings, dead whales, 21 of which were gray whales, which has a population that is immensely under threat, and 9 of those animals were ship struck. We also then went into a season of seeing leptospirosis, a bacterial infection in sea lions that was off the charts. Again, a greater length of time with that infection, greater intensity as well. We saw some 600 animals impacted at our facility alone. All of that was against the backdrop of playing defense against folks in DC who are trying to disassemble the Marine Mammal Protection Act and weaken the Endangered Species Act. Our plates are full. Those acts are phenomenal. They're doing a good job of keeping us where we are, protecting and recovering many species, but there's many species still at threat, and we need to keep going. We need to keep pushing forward. Sea otters, as a quick example, are one oil spill away from a catastrophic ending, right? This is serious stuff. Please join us in opposition to offshore drilling. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next up, we have Ben Eichenberg from San Francisco Baykeeper.
Thank you so much. I'm Ben Eichenberg. I'm a senior attorney with San Francisco Baykeeper. And Baykeeper's goal is to protect San Francisco Bay from the biggest threats, and offshore drilling is just that, a massive threat to the bay. But our goal is not just to keep the bay a nice place. This is the fight of our lives, and by protecting the bay, we're also fighting for an environment of decency, quality, and mutual respect for all other human beings and all other living creatures. We have the technology and the resources to meet that challenge, but we must keep fighting for the things we love. San Francisco Bay is surrounded by oil refineries, which means that we are already inundated with tanker traffic. Any offshore drilling will increase the risks we already face. We still depend on these refineries for now, but they're relics. For life on our planet to thrive, these dinosaurs must go extinct and be replaced by cleaner sources of energy. As you've heard, thank you, Janelle, for mentioning Baykeeper earlier. We're almost 2 decades removed from one of the largest spills in San Francisco Bay's history, the Costco Bay Sands spill of 2007. Now that nightmare started when a container ship crashed into a Bay Bridge support tower and spilled more than 53,000 gallons of fuel oil, with impacts to people, beaches, and wildlife across whole counties. We are still working to try to restore areas devastated by that spill, and that it killed thousands of birds and caused untold damages to our Bay ecosystem. California has a dirty history of oil spills, and so does the Bay. That risk goes up as the more oil we suck out of the ground, the more that risk goes up. The cost of these spills are incalculable. Oil doesn't belong in our bay, it doesn't belong in our neighborhoods, it doesn't belong here, period. Even the smallest amounts of oil can impact habitat, shorebirds, and fish, and can produce fumes that make people dizzy and nauseous. And in the process of transitioning to cleaner, greener energy, we need to hold refineries accountable for their responsibility to prepare workers and communities for inevitable and foreseeable change. A healthy economy and a clean environment can coexist if the transition is fair, meaning it trains refinery workers for new opportunities, prepares cities for different economic realities, protects the environment from outdated infrastructure, and prioritizes the health of frontline communities. The Bay Area is used to taking on seemingly insurmountable challenges to make change. It is in our nature to insist on justice and fair play. We'll continue to raise the alarm and hold polluters accountable, and together we can create a Bay Area that's free of dirty oil and healthier for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And now I'd like to welcome Irene Gutierrez from NRDC.
Hi there, Irene Gutierrez. I'm a senior attorney with the Natural Resources Defense Council. This is such a good turnout. Thank you all for making the time to come out tonight. So, like all of you, I'm a person who loves the ocean. I've lived in California for decades. I've made so many amazing memories by the ocean, hiking in Point Reyes, picnicking at Muir Beach. Back when you could dive for abalone, I was an abalone diver, an urchin fisherman in Jenner. And I'm also a mom-to-be, and I really want future generations to be able to make these memories too. So, there haven't been new offshore oil and gas leases off the coast of California since the 1980s. And there aren't any oil rigs off the coast of Northern California. And there's good reason for that. As you've heard from all the speakers here today, oil spilling creates unacceptable risks. So this comment period that we're going into, that we're in the middle of, this is a really important opportunity to let the administration know that we reject their plans to sell off our oceans to big oil, and to let them know all the reasons why you care about protecting our coasts and oceans. So environmental groups like NRDC and our sister organizations like Earth Justice, Surfrider, Azul, many others who are here, as well as local, state, and federal lawmakers, we're all commenting on and criticizing this program. And groups like ours that have litigation capacity and lobbying capacity, we're looking at all other possible options for opposing this dangerous program. And you all are a really important part of this fight. It's really important for the administration to hear from you directly. Speaking up during these public comment periods has been really effective in the past. It's been really powerful. Public pressure was really instrumental in taking areas like Florida off the table, really effective in taking the Atlantic seaboard off the table in this drilling proposal. And public pressure has been really effective in the past, too, at making sure that California is off limits to oil and gas development. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Let's make sure that the administration hears loud and clear that big oil has no place off the coast of California.
Thank you, Irene. Next up, somebody who's worked on stopping offshore oil drilling probably longer than most of us in this room, Richard Charter, representing Save My Coast.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here today to honor the global natural treasure that we now find ourselves defending on the California coast. The audacity of the current administration in Washington knows no limits, and so we face an irrational, all-inclusive offshore drilling proposal that is so outrageous that the Interior Department is literally afraid to hold a single public hearing on their plan in our state. We know why these folks are afraid to hold a public hearing here. Since the last public hearing on offshore drilling here, held in 1988 in Fort Bragg, resulted in 1,000 of our colleagues testifying for a continuous 23-hour period before the Secretary of Interior had to call off the proceedings and ordered his panel to abandon ship. There were still 700 people signed up to testify, listening to Monty Rain play on a flatbed truck out in front of the hall. I had to sit there for 7 more hours while that hearing, it would have never concluded. It was being carried live on FM radio in San Francisco. People were driving to Mendocino to testify. I think it would still be going on. We are once again reminded that the California coast is always in the process of being saved. Tonight is part of that process. There will be additional challenges still to come before we prevail. For a Secretary of Interior to shut down partially completed low-carbon renewable energy projects in the name of a so-called national energy emergency is a pathetic excuse for coming to instead destroy the California coast. If there is any kind of emergency, it is a result of a significant short circuit within the Department of Interior. We will utilize the guaranteed power of our local governments, our state agencies, and our citizens to once again defend our coast. It is what we do. And again, thank you all for being part of this blue wall protecting our coast.
Thank you, Richard. I'd like to welcome Drew Caputo from Earth Justice.
I work at Earth Justice, where we use the law and the courts to protect the environment and the people who depend on it. And so I want to spend my 3 minutes talking about 2 things. 1, about how radical this proposal is, and 2, what we can do to fight back. It's radical because almost all offshore oil drilling in the United States takes place in a relatively small part of the Gulf of Mexico. It's terrible for the Gulf, but at least it's contained within the Gulf. This proposal would expand offshore oil drilling to over 1 billion acres of ocean, which have never seen an oil rig before. That's radical and radically bad, given the environmental, climate, and economic consequences of doing that. The good news is we can fight back. The first Trump administration tried to do exactly the same thing. And in 2017, 2018, and 2019, they were working up a plan to expand offshore oil drilling similarly to this proposal. Earth Justice filed a lawsuit about offshore oil protections in Alaska and the Atlantic coast. And in the spring of 2019, we won that lawsuit in federal court in Alaska.
You.
A few days later, a Wall Street Journal reporter asked President Trump's Interior Secretary, hey, what's going on with your proposal to expand offshore oil drilling in the United States? And Secretary David Bernhardt said, well, we're working on that because we're a little discombobulated by that federal court decision out of the District of Alaska. And that plan never saw the light of day. We were the discombobulators who stopped that plan in the first Trump administration. For this plan to become final, the second Trump administration has to follow the law. It has to consider all of the environmental consequences of vastly expanding offshore oil drilling in the United States. And it has to consider and respond to all of the public comments that all of you and many other Americans are going to file. If they don't do that, and if they finalize their proposal to finish, to expand offshore oil drilling, we'll see them in court. If you'd like to join us, text the word oceans to 43428
and join our team of discombobulators. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Welcome, Isabel, from Environmental Action Committee of West Marin.
I'd invite you all to please just stand up and stretch your legs and then sit down if you'd like. All right, feel good? Good evening, my name is Isabel Dawson and I work with the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin. We're a nonprofit that's been working for 55 years to protect and sustain West Marin's unique lands, waters, and biodiversity. We were founded during the height of the environmental movement after oil tankers collided in the SF Bay, spilling over 800,000 gallons of bunker fuel that devastated San Francisco and Marin County beaches. Marin's coastal habitat is significant for recreation, tourism, and commercial fishing. Its waters provide habitat for at least 25 endangered or threatened species, 36 marine mammal species, over 250,000 breeding seabirds, and one of the biggest, most significant white shark populations on the planet. Our beaches and shorelines are visited by people locally and internationally, and border the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary, 9 marine protected areas, and 3 special closures. The waters off Marin are globally significant, providing a productive marine ecosystem, abundant wildlife, and valuable fisheries. This priceless and thriving biodiversity is uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of an oil spill and offshore oil, which we've been opposing since our founding. In 2020, our advocacy led to Marin County adopting an ordinance banning the development of onshore infrastructure for offshore oil and gas without a vote from Marin residents. In 2025, we supported Marin's resolution reaffirming their opposition to offshore oil drilling and deep seabed mining in light of this administration's new drilling plan, joining those across our state to say that we, as Californians, will not stand for this administration's attempts to open our waters to more dirty oil. While many cities and counties along our coast have resolutions and ordinances opposing oil drilling, our marine ecosystems are interconnected, and an oil spill anywhere hurts us all. We also can't divorce this conversation from recent and past events across the globe. Our country's oil addiction does not only devastate our own environments and communities, but also leads to conflicts abroad with devastating consequences for hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. As climate change accelerates, that harm is once again felt by ecosystems and communities across the planet. That's why I'm really encouraged by seeing all of you here today, because whether the shoreline you love is here in Marin, elsewhere in California, or somewhere across the ocean, opposing new oil drilling here, saying our future does not need to include oil dependence benefits us all. So I'm hoping everyone here tonight can visit one of those action tables back there and send a comment to this administration and make your voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Thanks for the stretch as well. People should feel free to move around if you need to. All right, I'd like to welcome Jeff Lumens from Greater Farallones Association, Board President.
Great, thanks very much, and thanks, Isabel. We're both West Marin environmentalists. We bump into each other a lot. Great to hear from you tonight. I'm Jeff Lumens. I'm the president of the Greater Farallones Association, and I'm also, as you just heard, a coastal homeowner here in Marin. I look right out on the Bolinas Lagoon, and that's one of the most significant and important habitats for seabirds, marine mammals along our coast. And it's been threatened in the past, severely threatened by oil spills. So for me, this is really deeply personal tonight. Through our partnership with the National Marine Sanctuaries, the Greater Farallones Association helps defend and provide for the habitats in the Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary, Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, and the northern section of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And I was going to tell you something really cool tonight about hotspots, but my colleague Maria Brown stole my thunder already and told you that there's 4 hotspots in the world. And so I'm going to toss out most of the rest of the speech, which is great because that will get things done quicker. And it's totally cool because I'm sure she's the one that taught me that in the first place. But here's another really interesting fact about these hotspots, which are incredible biodiversity locations in the oceans. In fact, the 4 major hotspots she's talked about are the most productive and species-rich places in the world. They're critically important to our oceans. And here's what's really cool, but also kind of pisses me off tonight. Ours, right off here, right off our shore, is the only one a national government has protected federally with contiguous marine sanctuaries. Now that's really important. Really smart people, members of the public, when these sanctuary systems were put together first, realized that one of the most important things they could do is protect them from oil and gas drilling. Would you go to the Serengeti, in the Serengeti National Park, and drill for oil in the midst of the Great Migration and some of the most important large mammal assemblages in the world? You would never do that. Plus, it's illegal. Would you go to Yosemite, go to the valley there, our American Serengeti, and go drill for oil there? Of course not, and it's illegal. And right now, to drill in our federal marine sanctuaries is illegal. Here's the challenge for you. It's illegal, but it's only going to stay that way if you, the public, like the people that put it together, force the federal government to realize that they have to stick to that they cannot violate the law. It is illegal, and they're not allowed to do it. So please, please stand with us in the Greater Fairlawns Association and make your voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Our next speaker was scheduled to be April Peebler from Heirs to Our Ocean. She unfortunately couldn't make it after all, but she did provide a statement and asked me to read it on her behalf. So, Heirs to Our Ocean is a nonprofit education and empowerment organization for youth. 10 years ago, I'm just going to read it the way she wrote it, so from their perspective. 10 years ago, we founded in California with 13 middle school age youth, led by my children, Charlie and Dakota, whose ages were 12 and 10 years respectively. Each of the 13 founding members had an area of focus related to the ocean and/or climate as they sought to raise awareness and seek change considering the state of the ocean and climate they recognized they were inheriting. Each youth worked directly with cutting-edge and highly reputable researchers and scientists who were doing difficult work aiming to change policy through their data collected. Oil spills were one of the areas of focus, considering the devastating impact on both marine life and communities. Marine mammals affected by oil spills was another. Coral affected by oil spills was another. The impact on climate due to the oil industry and petrochemical plants was another. Every single area of focus of the 13 founding members of Heirs to Our Ocean was connected to the atrocities of the oil industry, including the oil explosions and spills we have seen time and time again on the California coast, at the Gulf of Mexico, and in Alaska. And as our organization grew internationally, youth were suffering tragic and devastating oil spills in Brazil, in Nigeria, in Australia, and more. Now we're approaching our organization's 10-year anniversary. And rather than progress in the United States of America, we have regressed in our care for that which our children are inheriting. Through policies and actions, we are failing our children and their children. At what point will we learn from our actions and protect that which provides a lifeline to our children on this water planet we call home? I'd like to read a poem written by 14-year-old Seth Weinfeld in 2018. He was one of the founding members of Heirs to Our Ocean. He presented this with other youth at the Coal and Ice exhibit in San Francisco that year, which was an affiliate event to the Global Climate Action Summit of 2018. It's called Big Oil. I am big oil. I can make a lot of money off the ocean. I am a powerful influence on the government. I am big oil. I don't see coastal businesses crushed when I spew big oil. I don't care about the people I'm hurting when I spew big oil. I don't worry about the environment I'm destroying when I spew big oil. I don't believe in climate change. I believe in fewer regulations. I don't feel bad about the oiled animals. They're collateral damage. I sleep well at night. I am big oil. Thank you for your time. Please consider the impact of the next generations with decisions made today. So again, that was on behalf of April Pleeper from Restoration. I will transmit the applause to her. So we're going to wrap things up on this section with a few videos that we have.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry
Senator Schiff has had his moment. All right. So if you do not know Dick Ogg, he's a crab fisherman. He is wonderful. You're about to experience this. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Ogg, or Dick Ogg. I'm just a commercial fisherman here in Bodega Bay. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on this particular subject. To give you a little background on myself, I've lived in Sonoma County now for 64 years. I fished and dove along our Sonoma County coastline since I was in my early 20s. That equates to over 50 years, plus years on the water, and more than half of those have been as a commercial fisherman. My respect for nature was nurtured by my grandfather, who was a Native American in Oklahoma. His influence, still affects me today. It helps me understand the intricate interaction between the little tiny objects, that to the great big animals that live on the ocean. So, all of that is extremely important. And to really think about this, commercial fishermen are the true stewards of the ocean, because we make our living by harvesting sustainably and providing a resource that truly belongs to the public. With that in mind, protection from ocean industrialization is paramount from my perspective. However, when we look at it, there will be effects on the natural environment. The deep water of the ocean's coast are completely pristine and have existed there since the beginning of time. It'd be naive to believe that drilling and mining and any other industrial activity would not have a dramatic effect on that deep water ecosystem. The main concern I have is unintended consequences, things that we never expected or thought of. Oil discharges, yeah, they're going to happen. We recognize that. But what about the long-term effects? I can only think about the dams that are on the rivers in California, the convenience of hydroelectric power plants. We thought that was a long-term answer to the electrical production. Now, after all these years of seeing what has happened to our salmon, these dams are being removed. Is history doomed to repeat itself? I certainly hope not. Our coastal communities certainly rely on an ocean environment that can both provide sustainable harvest and remain clean and unmolested. We've all fought long and hard for our California coastline, and I personally am not willing to give that fight up now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Eric. Good afternoon, I'm Eric Sklar. As a member of the California Fish and Game Commission, I'm not here to mince words. Resuming offshore oil drilling on the Pacific coast isn't just bad policy. It's a direct assault on the health, economy, and future of California. While Governor Newsom isn't wrong when he says there's an assault taking place on our values, this particular battle is not a matter of differing philosophies or differing values. This is a difference between smart and stupid. The difference between approaching the future as adults who think about the consequences of our actions and the effect on future generations, or acting more like children who can only live in the moment with no concern for tomorrow. The fact is, where we drill, we spill. And history has taught us brutal lessons in this regard. From the 1969 Santa Barbara disaster to the 2021 Huntington Beach spill, the cost of cold so-called cheap energy is paid in dead wildlife, blackened beaches, and deep economic cost. The reality is there's no such thing as safe offshore drilling. It's a matter of when spills will happen, not if. Our kelp forests and marine protected areas are the nurseries of the Pacific. One catastrophic spill can wipe out decades of conservation work in a single tide. Offshore oil drilling is also economic suicide. The proponents claim drilling brings jobs, but they ignore the $54 billion economy already thriving on our coast. California is an economic juggernaut. California's tourism, recreation, and commercial fishing industries support over 650,000 jobs. Why would we risk a multi-billion-dollar engine of clean growth for a handful of oil leases that produce a drop in the bucket of global supply? It's a trade-off that makes zero sense for California citizens. The Fish and Game Commission's mandate is to protect our resources. New drilling does exactly the opposite. It threatens the fish we catch, the birds we watch, and the oceans we love while damaging our coastal economy. We will do everything we can to oppose this misadventure. California's already chosen a different path, one of clean energy and a vibrant blue economy. We will not be dragged backwards. We must stand united. No new leases, no new rigs, and no more reckless risks. Thank you so much for your commitment to this effort and for the fight ahead to win this battle.
I'm a day job. I'm a residential real estate broker, but I'm also a surfer, sailor, diver, tide pooler, beach walker, all-around ocean lover. Like many of you, it sustains every aspect of my life, and the ocean is the lifeblood of California. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of the Business Alliance for Protecting the Pacific Coast. We represent over 8,100 businesses on the West Coast, and with our sister coalitions on the Atlantic and Gulf Coast, over 65,000 businesses and 500,000 fishing families who believe offshore oil is bad for business. In 2019, I attended an event in Newport Beach to generate awareness around the previous offshore oil 5-year plan. And that was my first introduction to BayPAC, the Business Alliance. And I immediately signed up as a business member. Little did I know that 2 years later, we would have a major oil spill in our backyard. I found myself on the morning of the spill at RJ's, River Jetties, my local surf break, standing in front of a pool of oil with dead fish floating on the surface. The spill shut down the Huntington Beach Air Show and sent over 1 million people home early. It closed our beaches and harbors, stranded our fishing fleets out at sea, and they had to divert to San Diego for weeks. The fisheries themselves were closed for months. Surf and apparel shops had stacks of unsold inventory. Hotels, restaurants, coffee shops, already struggling from COVID, took another huge blow. My own residential clients lost months' worth of vacation rental income, and many of those visitors did not return the following year. Every coastal business in Orange County suffered financial losses. Their employees lost income, and our community lost its economic engine and crown jewel, our Pacific Ocean. The 2021 Huntington Beach spill made it obvious to me and all those who live, work, and try to run a business on the coast that offshore oil is bad for business. 95% of our coastal economy GDP comes from tourism, recreation, fishing, ship and boat building, transportation, and construction. And less than 5% of the GDP comes from offshore mineral resources. The LA port, the Long Beach port, the distribution hubs for the entire Southwest economy could have their operations put at risk by a major spill. Our military readiness and defense is complicated by the presence of oil rigs and the risk to navigation they pose. So I ask you, does it make sense to risk 95% of our economy and give special treatment to the dirtiest 5% of industry? This is as black and white and as bipartisan an issue as we get in California. Offshore oil is not only a bad, dirty business, just plain bad for business. Many of our great environmental, tribal, and community partners have offered ways you can speak up, and BayPAC thanks them for that. It's going to take a sea of different voices to protect our coast. But if you own a business or you have influence with a local business owner, consider joining BayPAC. It's free, and your business voice carries weight with our elected officials. It opens doors, hearts, and minds across the aisles to the risks of offshore oil. Thank you for being here. Keep up the fight.
I think keep up the fight is a perfect note to wrap up on. Thank you so much to everyone for being here. We really appreciate you spending this time with us, listening to all of our fantastic